Hi everyone, I hope all of you are doing great. Today's topic for discussion is all about arbitrage funds. In this video, we will talk about equity arbitrage funds. What are its features? What are its advantages? What are its disadvantages? Whether you as investors should, go in and invest in equity arbitrage funds. What are its risks involved? And who as an investor will benefit the most out of investing into equity arbitrage funds. We'll also take a look at why these funds have become so popular in the Indian context recently. So let's begin the video. So equity arbitrage funds, why invest in them when returns are so low? So equity arbitrage funds are a category of equity mutual funds which have become really popular in Indian context recently after the recent changes made in the tax treatment by the government of India. Yes, recently the government of India has removed the 20% tax with indexation benefit in the last 3 years, and the taxation rates have been made similar to the marginal tax rate for investors, making them unattractive for investors looking at good fixed income options. So now the taxation on debt funds has been made similar to that of fixed income deposits, making investors look for different alternative fixed income type of financial instruments. And this opportunity was very well grabbed by the mutual fund houses, who have now tried to introduce several other alternatives for such investors to grab that kind of investor class who are now looking for alternative to fixed income options to make their investments. So several mutual fund houses are coming up with old and new financial instruments. They are trying to make a mix of it in the form of hybrid funds, as well as equity arbitrage funds, to lure such investors towards investing in such funds. So now let's take a look at what exactly do we understand by equity arbitrage funds. What are equity arbitrage funds? So arbitrage is a strategy wherein an investor can buy and sell the same asset class for different price and then make a profit out of it. Yes, so here the asset involved will be the same, only the differences will be in the prices, in near term prices as well as future prices, and it is a play on this prices through which the investor can make a gain out of it. So that is the whole principle of arbitrage strategy. So equity arbitrage funds do this by playing in the cash as well as future market of securities. And given that India has a large number of securities with futures, so it makes it easier for the fund managers to make this plays, to play on this. Also, they can apply the rule of the strategy of arbitrage on securities that are trading on the different stock exchanges like BSE and NSE, and having a price difference, which is so often seen in the Indian context. So that means that in an equity arbitrage, same securities can be traded for the the current cash market price as well as in its futures, and in the difference in this prices can be used by the fund managers to make a gain for their investors. Similarly, in case of securities that are trading on both the stock exchanges like NSE and BSE in India and having a price difference, the fund manager can play on this price difference to make a gain for its investors. So this is the whole principle of equity arbitrage, wherein the underlying asset will be the same. However, the fund manager or the investors can play on the price differential. This can be either in the current cash market and the futures, or it can also be on the securities trading on different exchanges like BSE and NSE having different prices. So you can make a gain out of this price differentiation and make a profit for yourself. But however, it sounds lucrative and it sounds makes the strategy sounding like as if it makes sense. However, if we look at the performance of equity arbitrage funds, these were not very lucrative. The returns were only around 5 to 6% in the recent past, so making them not so very attractive in terms of returns per se. So even in and also one of the disadvantages here for the fund managers is that they have to play the liquidity as well as the transaction cost very well to to make the returns even shine out better, because so much of buying and selling involved, there will be a lot of transaction costs involved, as well as there should be sufficient liquidity in the market in those securities that are trading for the fund manager to make the most out of the returns, else it will make no sense. So he has to time it well so that the returns are even better. And but what I just mentioned earlier कि इस जो returns होते हैं इस funds में, they are not very lucrative. competitive. They have come to be around 5 to 6% in the recent past. So I hope the concept of arbitrage funds and how they function is their features is now clear for the viewers. Now let's take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of having an investment in the equity arbitrage fund. So let's this time begin with the disadvantages. So as I already mentioned, the returns are quite low in case of an equity arbitrage fund. Yes, it was around 5 to 6% in the recent past, which means that it makes more sense for highly sophisticated institutional investors who want to, who are looking at benefiting out of lower taxation, or who want to use the funds for a specific purpose or for a limited time range, like an alternative to a debt fund. So yes, I think it doesn't make much sense for individual investors, but it is more for sophisticated institutional investors. Now, second disadvantage that I find in the equity arbitrage fund is that the risk while involved is while lower when we consider compare it with equity funds. However, if you compare it with others like a gilt fund, so in that case the risks involved are higher. So I would like to sleep peacefully knowing that my funds are invested in some government securities, rather than being exposed to the volatility or prices or price discrepancies ki aage kya hoga nahi hoga. So if you are considering to have a safer investment, you should look at gilt funds other than the equity arbitrage fund. Now, the third concern in case of an equity arbitrage fund is that during stable markets, it will give you no or very little opportunities to play on the arbitrage. So to make the arbitrage shine. Why? Because at times of stable markets, not much variations or fluctuations are seen in the prices, and hence it will be very difficult to benefit out of the arbitrage, or the returns would also not be very lucrative, because the price differential in case of stable markets, the chances of having a huge price variation will be very low. So these were the three major disadvantages. While the risks are lower when compared to equity fund, they're higher when compared to a gilt fund. The returns have been lower, which is not making it much sense for individual investors like us to go in. And also the advantage of arbitrage fund is more when the markets are volatile. So in case of a stable market, in case of a quiet market, it does not make much sense to invest in an arbitrage fund. Now let's take a look at the different advantages of an arbitrage fund. So yes, so obviously they are lower risk when compared to equity funds, as the same asset is being bought and sold at different points of time. So inherent price variation will not be much, because the same asset is involved. So that kind of risk is covered in case of arbitrage fund, and that is why they are considered a substitute to the debt funds. Now, second advantage in case of an equity arbitrage fund is that of the taxation. So the equity arbitrage funds are taxed at similarly to that of an equity fund. So that means that an equity arbitrage fund will be taxed at around 15% if held for less than a year, and around 10% if held for more than a year. So this is in sharp contrast to the marginal tax rate of a debt fund, which can be as high as around 30 to 40%. So yes, the taxation is lower in case of an equity arbitrage fund, and that is why it makes it lucrative for sophisticated institutional investors who want to save a large portion of their funds in taxation. Now they have the equity arbitrage fund also have a very good history in India, and with a lot of fund houses now having their products in the equity arbitrage space, like we have Kotak, we have Invesco, we have Nippon, we have SBI. So there are different fund houses already having equity arbitrage funds. So that makes their history, their performance, it's easier for investors to study all this before making an informed decision to invest in an equity arbitrage fund or not. And last but not the least, the equity arbitrage fund make large returns and in times of volatility. So yeah, is the kind of volatility, the financial crisis that we witnessed in 2008, in those kinds of period, the equity arbitrage funds will make better returns, will make larger returns. Why? Because there is a large price differential if we consider in between the two timelines in case of a volatile time. So these were the different advantages of an equity arbitrage fund. So they are less risky, they are taxed at lower taxation rates, they have a good history for investors to study their performance, and also they will make larger returns in times of any financial volatility or crisis in any country. So in summary, I would like to say that equity arbitrage funds makes little sense for investors like us, like a retail investor or an HNI, and it will make more sense for corporates, for companies who are looking at investing a small part of their allocation for a specific purpose only. So if you look at the benefits in terms of lower taxation or lower risk, it does not fare well, it is not enough, because the returns involved are also very low. So yes, in those cases, I think the equity arbitrage funds makes little sense for investors like us. And also with debt funds losing using their indexation benefit status, more and more investors will try and crowd spaces of like equity arbitrage funds, making the returns even lower. So all in all, a category which is involving too much of complication and not giving us the benefit out of returns in the form of returns for investors. So I would suggest my fellow investors to stay out of this fund. And so that was all from my side. I hope you like my video. अगर like पसंद आए मेरा वीडियो तो वीडियो को लाइक करें, मेरे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें, and also share it with your friends and family. सब्सक्राइब करने के लिए you can click on the green globe that is flashing on your screen right now. I hope to see you again and have a very nice day. Bye.